Welcome to the last of the site analysis series, part 3, which is all about presenting the site analysis. The work that you put into your site analysis presentation is directly related to what you'll get out of it. And what I mean by this is the better you can present your work and what you found out, the better understanding you're going to have of your site, and therefore you'll hopefully be able to create a better design as a reflection of what you've understood from the site. Also, by presenting your work well, you're showing to your tutors that you've understood the site and you've understood what's been asked of you. So the basics of what you're wanting to get across in your site analysis presentation is just a general overview of the site. Very important to show some key photographs, different angles, and focusing in on some of the important elements of the site. So if you visited the site and happened to make some sketches, things like that, then that's always a really good key thing to include in your site analysis presentation. Always put in lots of photographs. Like this image here, it's a sort of stitched together panoramic photograph, which works really well, particularly in this case, because this site was sort of under the canopy of all these trees. So that gives a really good view of what you can see from within the site. So don't forget that. Not only take photos looking at the site from a distance, but if you can, get yourself into the site so that you can see what the views are looking out and to the surrounding areas. Other images that are really important to put in are sort of annotations. So for example, if you've got a site plan, you want to have maybe some plans that you've sketched over showing important pedestrian routes or vehicle routes, things like that. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that shortly. So you'll also want to include data, and that's things like charts, graphs, for example this one here is about the climate, rainfall, things like that. Any data that you've collected either from the site or from desktop studies after you visited the site. Try and present it in a more interesting way, and if you've collected data that is really heavy going, just extract what's important and related to your site and to your sort of analysis of the site, because sometimes there's just too much information, no one needs to know it, so just keep it simple, and I think that's a key when it comes to presenting this sort of data. Another thing to look at is sun angles. This here is a little SketchUp model I've done. It was pretty quick to do, but it's a really good way of showing the sun directions. So you've got early morning sun here, which again you could label up, and then sort of midday sun. This is in around September time, I think, so still quite long shadows, and then late afternoon, early evening sun. You can also do the annotations with showing the actual sun path, which I'll show you a bit more in a minute. But these are good little SketchUp models, are always really useful to show the shadows, because you can really see how a shadow is going to hit your proposed site. Okay, so just to go back to what I was saying about annotating your drawings, I've got this SketchUp model again. So for example, you could doesn't matter how you do this, but you could add on your sun path. So for example, you could have your morning sun, midday sun, and evening sun. Obviously you'd do a better job of this than I'm doing here, but this is just to give you an idea. And then, so for example, you would have your, you could say you've got your prevailing wind, so you've got arrows coming in from an area of the site, just to get an idea of that, and you could, note that up here as to what those arrows mean. You could also put on things like pedestrian sort of circulation. So, for example, let's say that there's a main pedestrian route going through the site. You could label this up and have these going through like this. For example. Also, if, say, for example, you've got a main, vehicle route or something, you could put that on. And it's just to show exactly how all these elements relate to your site, and and what you're going to design. Another thing you could do is, say we've said that this is a really busy road. Let's say that this is a site here that we're looking at. Let me just draw around that just so you can see. So let's say that this is our site here that we're looking at redeveloping. Okay, and because we've identified this as a really busy road, perhaps we could put in a suggested landscape buffer. So we could scribble that in here to show that we feel it's necessary to put in a suitable buffer between the busy road and our site. Another thing you could put on is things like views. So let's say from our site the best view is looking out towards this church, so we could just put in, you know, little arrows like this to demonstrate where we want the main sort of focal point looking out of the site to be. Or let's say that this was a lovely park or something like that. You know, you could have some big old arrows coming out here showing that you want people to be looking in this direction. So yeah, you get the idea of how to just create a bit of interest directly onto your site plan, whether that's a 3D plan or 2D, it doesn't really matter, but you know, you can put all of this information on and then just on the side here give an idea of what all of these colour codes mean, etc. You also want to identify some of the problems and drawbacks kind of within the site, and a good way to do this again is perhaps marking up on a plan to, say for example, show a busy road or a noisy factory or something like that could have an impact on your site, and you can sort of it's a really good way is to get your site plan and again scribble on it, draw on it, or use sort of a pull-out image of the area that you're trying to focus on. We've created a board on Pinterest, on our First in Architecture page on Pinterest, that's dedicated to site analysis and site analysis examples. The link to this will be underneath the video on YouTube or within the notes on the website. So if you just click on the site analysis examples, this will just give you a bit of an idea of the kind of thing. There are so many ways you can present your site analysis, and sometimes it is really good to look at what other people have done just to give you some ideas. You know, don't copy what other people do, but it really gives you some ideas of how you can present your site analysis. And obviously it's going to be different because every site's different, but you know, be a bit creative with it, and think of how it would be best to show off the site, you know, to sort of to get the most information out there and make it really clear so that people understand what you've learned from the site and how you're going to approach it moving forward with your design. So make sure you check out Pinterest. I think you'll find it really helpful, and I'm always adding stuff onto this board, so we keep checking back. I think it's a really useful resource when it comes to site analysis. So that's it for the site analysis series. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Come over to the website firstinarchitecture.co.uk and see us there, and come and say hi on our Facebook page.